What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. In today's video is going to be on 9th Lost Chapter LUFENIA fight, and before we do start, like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, and I would like to thank everyone for basically supporting the cheese video that I did recently on the Alexander LUFENIA fight. That's probably the most views I've had in a while, in a very long time since I stopped doing Should You Pull videos. I do appreciate all the support, and in this video we are going to be going through another cheese. It's kind of debatable whether you can call this a cheese, because you're really not taking advantage of any mechanics from the boss, but it is still a pretty easy way to beat this LUFENIA fight as long as you have certain characters. We'll be going through that in this video, and of course we'll still be going through the actual fight itself and some party compositions at the end. Now without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, so first and foremost, I want to get the cheese out of the way, since a lot of you people are probably wanting to know how you're gonna cheese this fight. First of all, you do need Yang's LD for this one. It just makes it so much easier. There is another way to do it without Yang's LD, but it's just gonna be like turn manipulation, and that we pretty much know how that works. So first off, remove all of his passive speed buffs. This is very important. This allows him to use his LD, the follow-up attack, as much as possible. The next one is have to turn manipulator characters like Garland, Lightning, Aranea, and Terra. Now I know Lightning is a thunder based attack and you don't want to be countered. We'll be going through that a little bit later. Next is to have Fujin in your call ability slot. Now it's not really important whether you have her LD or not. Even just the base call is enough. If you don't have her LD, I would suggest using her call when you see the orbs come out. This just saves you a little bit of that I suppose like turns for the call, and I would emphasize this to put Fujin's call on Yang, since he is going to be your slowest character. Now basically all you have to do now is use Yang's LD, and basically don't let the enemies have any turn with your two manipulators, and basically you won't have to worry about the orb, because Yang keeps doing a follow-up attack, which basically you get +2 of the LUFENIA orb, which means it won't ever take down, so no worries there. And that's pretty much how you are going to cheese this fight. Now if you don't have these set up, let's talk about the actual fight itself. So the orbs actually come out of the ads, or the minions, whatever you want to call it, below 80% of their HP. The main boss doesn't actually have any LUFENIA orb, which is a little bit weird. Like I said, you get +2 when the target takes an elemental weakness damage, and they are weak to the wind and dark element inherently. So you can use some sort of like imperil, and that can sometimes work to your advantage. Now there aren't really a lot of wind based characters, so Fujin is probably the main one. Vaughn can do a little bit of this, so is Maria, and I believe Sid from Final Fantasy VII can have like a wind type element. But dark elements, we do have Golbez for that one, and Dark Knight Cecil can do that as well. Or if you want both at the same time, Shantoto can do both. She has the dark and wind element as well. And let's not forget about Leon from Final Fantasy II, who basically is a Dark Knight as well, and will be a very important character to bring along in order for you to use a lightning as one of your turn manipulators, like I mentioned earlier in this video. And with that, let's talk about how the fight works. Now, the recast ability for the main boss deals a lot of HP damage, so be careful with that and make sure you're topped up in your brave. Try not to get broken. The other thing with this particular fight is basically the boss and even the minions have an ability called countercast. Basically, they will counter the fire, ice, thunder, water, earth, holy elements. And this is followed up by like an HP attack multiple times. I believe 2 HP attacks will be heading your way if you use these elements. There is a way to counter that, and we'll be going through that a little bit later. Next up is the boss will delay and even sometimes halt your brave recovery. It also basically lets its minion gets a follow-up turn after its turn, so it has a move called like pull, and depends on which ESP doll, you know, or which minion it wants to pull, and basically, you know, that minion's turn will be move forward next to its turn. Now, the minions do buff the boss, and of course they can be very dangerous as well because they can buff the entire party with like some brave recovery and then followed up by an HP attack. Alright, so after hearing all this information, how are you going to deal with this fight? Well, first and foremost, delay and turn manipulation are key, and this is just part of the cheese as well anyway. But if you are planning to do this fight properly and not use the cheese strat, using shields are basically the way to survive those recast abilities. Use Warrior of Light and or 9 shields. Alternatively, you can use something like reducing the HP damage, which, like for example, Gladio is a good character to pick up for this one. It can reduce the amount of brave and HP damage you are going to be taking. Now, the biggest thing here is how are you going to avoid the countercast ability from the boss. Basically, this is what I talked about, using any of the fire, ice, water, thunder, earth, and holy elements will basically get you countered with a couple of brave plus HP attacks, right? Now, the key here is actually using Leon. So if you have Leon built up with his EX, it actually allows you to turn their attacks into dark element, and wouldn't you know, his EX also gives you a buff that lets you absorb the dark element. So basically, if they don't have like an initial brave, you are going to be taking 0 damage. So as long as they're broken, you're just getting 0 damage because they're not getting any brave. If they inherently get some brave back from their their initial brave, then you will be taking that HP damage, but other than that, you're not taking anything else. And of course, you do have to avoid the enemies like getting a lot of brave back from buffs and stuff like that, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Alright guys, now let's take a look at some of the characters that you might want to consider bringing in this particular fight. First off, Leon, if you are planning to bring other elemental characters like Ignis or, lightning and stuff like that to increase your overall damage, you do need Leon in your team. So, but if you're not planning to do that, you got Squall, Cloud, Golbez, Warrior of Light, Gladio, Nine, Terra, Yang, obviously for the cheese. You've got Balthier. I would even recommend Sarah if you are planning to bring Fujin along. Those are basically, there are ways to go around that counter cast ability, and so if you want to do that, then go ahead. Now, as for the Cole characters, Fujin is actually the best Cole character for this one. She just provides, like party-wide win enchant, so you don't have to worry too much. It is only limited though, so if you are planning to do this, just make sure you have a little bit of backup. And obviously if you are doing the cheese, just make sure that you use it after you see the orbs if you don't have her LD. Obviously the other really obvious ones are Amethyst Lion, because she can delete turns, Jack for the really great, you know, debuff, and you can also use Hope if you want to use magic based characters, because I do believe that the boss is double resistance to magic, so if you don't have enchant, you can bring Hope along as well. Alright guys, so now let's take a look at the party compositions. Obviously the video you are seeing here is going to be the cheese strat that I used. So the main team is basically Terra, Garland, Yang, and then for the cult team we got Amethyst Lion, Fujin, and Jack. It's important here that, again, I just want to reiterate that you put Fujin call ability on Yang because he is going to be your slowest character. The support can either be Golbez or Garland. Honestly, Garland's probably the safer one, since you can keep the, like, you know, delaying the turns, whereas with Golbez it's more of like just doing tons of damage. And honestly, at some point maybe you don't even need a support, but hey, just be safe, right? Summon for this one I went with Diabolus. Now the next team I'm featuring is going to be some sort of cheese as well. it's the launch team, maybe, and we haven't had the launch team in a while. So Cloud, Dark Knight, Cecil, and Keys again. You know, with Dark Knight Cecil, you don't really have to worry too much as a backup for the Fujin call when it comes to the Lufenia orbs. Then you got Jack and Gabranth are obviously one of the really good debuffers for whole ability. Then you got Garland for your support, just in case you need a little bit of a delay, and Pandemonium for the summon. Now the last team I have for you guys here is a variant of the cheese. You know, you've got Garland, Fujin, and Arnea. This means you can just keep delaying the boss indefinitely. You still have to worry about the minions, but other than that, I think it's fairly safe. I mean, you know, it's not as safe as the actual quote-unquote cheese cheese team, but it is up there. Then you've got Ferris, Hope, and Jack for your call on this one, since you are using Fujin here. Garland for support, and Odin for your summon. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course before we do go, I would like to give you my final thoughts regarding this fight. Look, if you are planning to do this like a proper way, you do need a little bit of focus here, especially if you're using 9, because I tried using 9 and I was just not focusing a lot and ended up like dying quite a few times because I wasn't refreshing the LD buff that, you know, that takes off the HP damage. Basically, if you don't know, 9's LD basically nullifies like the HP damage you receive, and if you get hit by that recast ability, even with his shield, for whatever reason, I was full on brave, you know, and yeah, I still ended up dying. Even with that shield. Now, granted, if you use someone else, you are going to be you're probably gonna get a much easier fight. Like Warrior of Light is like a no-brainer when it comes to like shields and stuff. So if you end up using Warrior of Light instead of 9 as your shield, then you shouldn't have any issues. Like even with Gladio, like reducing the HP damage dealt, I personally haven't tried it, but just, you know, reducing the HP damage dealt is something that you may want to consider. And hopefully you don't get broken as well, because that is one of the biggest part of it. and as long as you can reduce their attack and make sure you have your buffs up, then you should be fine. Obviously, if you are just going to do the cheese, then this fight is too easy, and I would highly recommend using the cheese strategy, or quote-unquote cheese. So at the end of it, I think this fight is not too bad. A little bit restrictive on the wind element, but there are quite a few dark elemental characters that you may want to consider bringing along. Yeah, and that's basically my overall thoughts regarding this fight. Yeah, so leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it does help the channel, and I would really appreciate it if you share this video as well. It does contain a cheese strategy if you do have those characters, for someone who's struggling, who probably has these characters but don't know how to do it. Hopefully you can share this video to them, and make sure to always follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. Leave that in the comments below if you did this cheese, quote-unquote cheese strategy, or did you beat this normally or in a proper fight. Let me know down in the comments below. And that is it for me, guys. This is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next level.